All right, here we go with the very first lesson in the first unit. So starting off with measurement, and we're starting off with the easiest stuff, which is the metric stuff. So this is um, allegedly what we use in Canada. However, in Canada, it depends on what you're talking about. Um, Even though we do talk about liters, and meters and kilometers and things like that. We also use feet and inches in everyday life and in our job sites. And most people would say their weight in pounds before they would say their weight in kilograms and stuff. So here we kind of use both, but officially in Canada, we do use the metric system. And it's very, very nice to work with. And you'll see why. And you'll come to appreciate it as we have to do imperial system conversions in the next lesson. So this is a representation of the metric system here. So this diagram here, I'll zoom in a little bit for you. Okay, here we have a whole bunch of different units, and these are the ones that we're going to use kind of in our everyday life. Okay, so let me kind of break this down, what this means here. Okay, so um, this staircase here, we're going to call it a staircase, could be used for lots of different types of units. Okay, so in the metric system, we could use meters. Okay, that's if we're going to measure a distance. So our base unit, we would say, would be meters. Okay, so we could call our base unit meters. But a meter is, in some situations, quite large, and in other situations, it's quite small. Okay, so we need other units in order to measure things, conveniently that are small, or measure things conveniently that are large. So in our system, in the metric system, what we do is every time we need a smaller unit, we just take our meter and we divide it into 10 pieces. Okay, and we'd make like 1/10 of a meter. We then call a decimeter. Okay, so this is 10 times smaller than a meter. And then 10 times smaller than that. Okay, we go one more step down our staircase. 10 times smaller than a decimeter would be a centimeter. And 10 times smaller than that would be a millimeter. Okay, so this is kind of what we put in front of whatever our unit is. If we were instead of using meters, instead if we had used liters, okay, it would work the exact same way. It's just that now we're saying 10 times smaller than a liter would be a deciliter. 10 times smaller than that is a centiliter. 10 times smaller than that is a millimeter. Okay? And going the reverse way, it's getting 10 times bigger each time. Okay? 10 times, like 10 liters, we would also call a deciliter. 10 of those we'd call a hectoliter, and 10 of those we'd call a kiloliter. Okay, so every time we're getting 10 times bigger, 10 times bigger. So this is really, really easy to work with because all you're doing when you're converting between these units is just multiplying or dividing by 10, sometimes more than once. But it really doesn't get harder. So let me give you just a quick, kind of visual example. Okay, so I've got my cell phone, okay, right here, and I've got a ruler stuck to it because I got a magnet on my phone. Okay, I'm not magic. So my phone, if we're measuring it from the top here, I know it's going to be kind of awkward to see, but it's about 15 centimeters across. Okay, so it's about 15 centimeters across. If we were to count up each one of these, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Okay, if we wanted to measure it in something else, okay, if we wanted to measure it in 10 times bigger than millimeters would be decimeters. Okay, so that would be 10 centimeters would be 1 decimeter. Then we would say that my phone would be like 1.5, okay, 1.5 centimeter or 1.5 decimeters across. Our unit has gotten 10 times bigger, so we need less of them. Right? If we have small units, we need a lot of them. If we're using bigger units, we don't need as many. We'd only need 1.5 decimeters. Okay. We could go the reverse way as well, right? Instead of having 1 centimeter, we could start. What if we measured it in millimeters? Okay, millimeters, there's 10 of those in every single centimeter here. So each one of these would be 10, 20, 30, 40, and so on. And we would end up having, it would be 150 millimeters across. So if we use smaller units, as units have gotten 10 times smaller, we're going to need 10 times more of them to describe the same length. Okay, so that is what's going to that's going to be the most common mistake in this metric lesson, is that when you're going up or down the staircase, you're going to be thinking, well, my units are getting 10 times smaller, so I need to divide my measurement by 10. Okay, but if our units are getting smaller, right? If our units are getting smaller, then we're going to need more of them in order to measure the same distance. So what we do is when we go down, if I said I had, let's say 50 liters of something, and I wanted to turn it into centiliters. Okay, so how would I measure that in centiliters to get the same measurement? I have to go down the staircase 1 step, 2 steps to get down to centiliters. As I do that, my units are getting 10 times smaller, so I need more of them. Each time I go down a step, I'm going to multiply my number by 10. Okay, so I started off with 50 liters, and I wanted it in centiliters, so I say 50 times 10 times 10, and that just is 5,000 centiliters. Okay, this letter here is the letter that we put in front of our unit to show what kind of unit we are talking about. Okay, so when we just are writing liters, we just have to write an L. If we're talking about centiliters, we would say CL for centiliters, right? Or, you know, what you're more used to would be centimeters, right? Or millimeters, and so on. Okay, if I wanted to say how much is 50 liters, but now I want to talk about it in terms of hectoliters. Okay, so I'm going to use bigger units, so I won't need as many of them. If I use bigger units, I don't need as many. I'm going to use red just to kind of show that it's doing this, this is different than what we were doing before. Taking 50 liters, going up 1 step, up 2 steps. Bigger units, we need less of them, so we're dividing by 10 as we go up this staircase. Divide by 10, divide by 10. Okay, so that means we started off with our 50 liters, and we want to turn those into hectoliters. So we're going to divide 50 by 10, and then we're going to divide it by 10 again. So 50 divided by 10 is just 5, and then 5 divided by 10 would be 0.5. Okay. The nice thing about multiplying or dividing by tens is that all we're doing is we're just kind of like shifting wherever our decimal point is, right? When you divide by 10, you're getting smaller, and so your decimal point would shift like 1 over. And then you're going to divide by 10 again, so it's going to shift over 1 more spot. Okay. These you can do on your calculator. You'll have a calculator on your test. That part's no big deal. But sometimes, you put like 50 divided by 10, and you get 5 back in your calculator, and then you feel a little silly because you already knew what the answer was. So you didn't really need to go to that extra work. So that's kind of the overview. Okay, let's do some practice problems. And but this is really, if you understand what's going on here, you understand the entire lesson. So to start off, these are just some things to, just in general, right? Just getting yourself familiar with what these different units are. This one just says what's bigger, a kilometer or a millimeter, right? So kilometer is quite large. Okay, millimeter, very, very small. So in this case, we would say kilometer, much bigger. Okay, and I'll let you figure out which units or order them from largest to smallest. You can use this staircase. This staircase is also on your formula sheet. Let me just pull that up here for a second. So on a quiz or test in this class, you do have this staircase here. It's filled it in with meters for you, but this works for anything that you want. Okay, this says kilometers, hectometers, decameters, meters, decimeters, centimeters, millimeters, but we could just as easily put liters in for each of these, and it would be the exact same. Okay, and it even has the times 10 divided by 10. There's a reminder for you. All right. So you can put those in order from largest to smallest. These ones are ones that you should know off the top of your head. Might take you a second. You have to, think of a meter stick or think of a ruler, and you'll figure it out pretty quick. But 1 kilometer is 1,000 meters. And these are really good for checking, if does this make sense? When you're thinking of, if a question asks you how many centimeters would 5 How many centimeters is 5 meters? How many centimeters is 5 meters? Sorry. Well, you know that 1 meter is 100 centimeters. Okay, a meter stick has 100 centimeters on it. So 5 meters must be 500. Okay, 1 meter is 100. Then that means 2 meters would be 200. 3 meters would be 300 centimeters, and so on. So 5 meters would be the same thing as 500 centimeters. And so these kind of things can help you kind of check your work, because there is quite a lot of these things that you know by common sense. All right, so lastly on this list here, 1 centimeter is 10 millimeters. Again, think of a ruler, think of how big 1 centimeter it is, and that 1 centimeter on a ruler is broken up into 10 millimeters. All right, so now let's do a couple examples. Okay, how many centimeters in 1 meter? We essentially did this already. We've got our staircase here as a reference, but we are going from meters, that's our base unit, down to centimeters. Okay, so we have 1 meter and we're going down 2 steps. 1, 2. Each of these steps, our units are getting 10 times smaller, so we need 10 times more of them. Okay, times 10 times 10. So we're going to have 1 times 10 times 10. That is going to give us, you can put it into your calculator if you want to, 100 centimeters. Okay, so this just proved what we already knew. Okay, we already know that 1 meter is 100 centimeters, but this is kind of using this kind of tool to do it. Okay, which is handy when we're working with less familiar numbers. Okay, how many millimeters in 1 meter now? Okay, this one you might not know off the top of your head. You can figure it out if you think about it for long enough. But if we were going from 1 meter, we're going from 1 meter down to millimeters. Okay, that is going to be 1 step, 2 step, 3 steps. Okay, so that's times 10 times 10 times 10, 3 times. So 1 times 10 times 10 times 10. Okay, and that's going to give us 1,000 millimeters. So 1 meter is the same thing as 1,000 millimeters. Okay, now these ones are slightly less round. Okay, so we have 4.2 meters. How many millimeters is that? So 4.2, and we're just going to use our staircase again. I'm just going to write out the letters here. Okay, I'll show you a trick for how to memorize those in the next video. But this is kilometers, hectometers, decameters, and so on. Okay, and our B is for base, or basic unit. So if we're going from meters and we're going to millimeters, okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, just like our last one. We're going down 3 steps. We're going to times by 10 3 times. Okay, and again, you can put this into your calculator, or if you're comfortable by moving your decimal 1 for each times, moving your decimal 1 place for every time you multiply by 10. This would be 4, 2, 0, 0. Your decimal point has moved from here, 1, 2, 3. Your decimal point would now be here. We don't need to draw it because there's nothing after it, but so 4.2 meters would be the same thing as 4,200 millimeters. Okay, I'm just going to write this out for the sake of being clear. 4.2 meters is equal to 4,200 millimeters. How many millimeters in 7 kilometers? Okay, so we're starting off with 7 kilometers. And if we're going from kilometers, okay, now use a different color here. I'm just going to write this out again. You can be looking at your formula sheet for your staircase if you want. Okay, this time we're going all the way from kilometers down to millimeters. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, for each one of those, we're getting 10 times smaller. We need to multiply by 10. Okay, so we're going to multiply by 10 7 times. Okay, I'm just going to write 7 times here so you don't have to watch me write it out. Okay, if you put that into your calculator, you get a large number. I'm just going to do this kind of moving the decimal point trick. Okay, so That would mean that my decimal point is going from here over 7 spaces. Oh, sorry, 7, 2, okay, 6. Yeah, I don't know why I said 7. My apologies. 6. Okay, so I'm going to move it over 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, my decimal has moved from here over 6 spaces. That is, and we just fill these in with zeros. 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so 7 kilometers is the same thing as 7 million millimeters. Okay, this is why we have different units, is that we don't have to say 7 million millimeters. I went for a 7 million millimeter run. Okay, last 2 examples, kind of 4-ish, we'll see. This is the same thing, just dividing. Okay, so how many meters in 1 centimeter? So how many meters in 1 centimeter? This time we are having to divide. Okay, in this case, we're now going up our staircase. We're going from small units to big units, so we need less than we're dividing now. So this one is starting off with 1 centimeter and going up to meters. Okay, we're starting with centimeters and then going up 1, 2 to our basic unit, which is our meters. So this one would be 1 divided by 10 divided by 10. Okay, as we're getting bigger, we're dividing by 10 for each step. Divide by 10, divide by 10. So this one, our decimal point is now going to be moving the other way. Okay, again, you can put this into your calculator. That's fine too. But our decimal point is going to be moving 1, 2 spaces over to right here. So if we filled those in with zeros, we would get then 0.001 meter. Oh, sorry. This is why. 0.0. Yeah, this one is a 1. This one is a 0. This one's a 0. Right. So then how many centimeters in 1 millimeter? This one is only 1 step. Okay, we're starting off at millimeters and going up to centimeters. So we are just dividing by 10 once. Okay, so 1 millimeter is being divided by 10. Okay. So put that into your calculator or move your decimal point from here to here, and you will get 0.1 centimeters is the same thing as 1 millimeter. For these two, I think you probably get the idea at this point. We'll just kind of put the answers in there for you, and you can fill in the practice problems, and that's it for this lesson. Okay, so working with the metric system, much simpler than working with the imperial system. It's basically just getting a handle on are you multiplying or dividing by 10. Okay. All right, so to end off this video, I'll just show you that the answers to these 2 solutions, or these last 2 examples, would be 8,000 is being divided by 10 3 times, okay, to go from meters 1, 2, 3 up to kilometers. And this last one, 22 million millimeters to kilometers. Okay, we're going from millimeters up 6 steps. Okay, times by 10 or divide by 10 6 times to get that is the same thing as 22 kilometers. Okay, so give those practice problems a try, and good luck.